Okay, you should be able to see my screen. I got 4 questions to go over. I don't know if we went over them last time or not. So just to refresh everybody, we are on 12.3. So 12.4 is coming up, and we've already started on 12.4 because I've already started showing y'all how to do 12.4 on I think Friday's or Wednesday's class. Finding the mean, median, mode, range, mid-range, variance, standard deviation, as well as the 5-number summary. So we did we do 1 or 2 questions last week or about that? I think we did 1, didn't we? Or did we do 2? I think we did 2, didn't we? That means I want y'all to answer. Did anybody look in your notes? Okay, nobody's going to talk to me today. All right. So this is 12.3, 47, 47, 55, and 55. So we've got 2 of each. I'm sorry, what?
I don't know the answer.
Well, I know I went over 1, but I can't remember if we went over a second one. But we're going to do it today because I'm going to keep doing 12.3 and 12.4 together. So that way y'all can work on them and send me questions. Now, we only got 2 sections or 3 sections in chapter 11 to do. And you should all be working on chapter 7 and 8. Now, I do have some chapter 7 and 8 questions down here, see? And we will go over those after we finish this test on chapter 12 and chapter 13, or 11 and 12. But we're doing 12.1 to 12.4 first. So this question is 12.3, 47/11. I think this is the question we had. Yeah, this is the question we did, is it not? Somebody look in your notes and tell me. Okay. I pissed y'all off or something, or y'all mad or what?
I have 2 different notebooks and I'm got it mixed up. I don't know which one I wrote it in.
Ah, okay.
So I can't.
All right, I'm going to go ahead. I remember doing this one, so I'm going to go ahead and do this one. 12.3, 55/13. Why in the world do they do stuff like this? Why don't they just put a title on this question to say, let us confuse the student as much as possible. Okay. To calculate the weighted average, use the formula summation of x times w over the summation of w, where w is the weight of the piece of data, x, and the summation of x times w is the sum of the products for each place of multiplied by weight, and summation of w is equal to the sum of the weights. Suppose that your final grade on a course is determined by a midterm exam and final exam. So the whole grade, and this happens in college, you show up for the midterm and you show up for the final. You don't have to come to class. You just take those 2 tests and that's your grade. Okay, I used to have a math class like that. The midterm exam is worth 40% and the final exam is worth 60%. So basically, let me pull up my handy dandy do-jigger. And of course, just ignore this stuff up here because that just does nothing but confuse you. So you take your weight of your midterm, your grade is 88, and you multiply that by the weight. And then you add that to your exam grade, weighted, and your exam grade is 78, multiplied by 0.6. And now you take your handy dandy calculator and you do 88 times 0.4. That's equal to 35.2. And 78 times 0.6. And that gives you 46.8. And then you add those two together. Plus 35.2. So you got a grade of 82. Now, you should look at that and go, well, I knew how to do that. I just didn't understand what they were asking. Well, like I said, they should have put up here, this question is to confuse students that already know how to do the math. Okay? Do I like this question? No, I do not like this question. But did anybody know how to do it now that I showed you how to do it, but you didn't know how to do it because you didn't understand this crap? Anybody?
Yes.
Good. Are y'all hungover or what? I should be the one. I'm the one that went to bed at 3 o'clock, okay? So I should be the one that is hungover.
We're still mad about the election.
I'm not mad, I'm livid. Have an election and then 5 Democratic states are the ones that have problems with the count. Isn't that a coincidence?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, very much. All I got to say is
probably because he didn't win those states. Probably because he did not win those states.
Well, I don't. I'm not sure it's over because I don't think that I think something's wrong. Something doesn't smell right. Okay, that's all my opinion.
If he wins the Wisconsin.
Say again, what?
It's done.
What did you say, Mr. Brown?
I said if we can win back Wisconsin for Trump, it's done.
I just think that there's something going on. You know, we never have had mail-in ballots. Never. And then we have these mail-in ballots, and 5 Democratic cities have to do counting after Election Day. It just don't seem right. Something don't. We've been well, I did absentee ballots when I was in Saudi Arabia. I voted for president when I was in Saudi Arabia. I don't understand why people that need to send in ballots, why can't you do an absentee ballot? Why do we have to do mail-in ballots? It's just something's not right, and that's all I'm gonna say. Okay.
They've done it trying to get Biden to win.
Well, I really do think it doesn't matter who the nominee was, whether it was Bernie or whoever, they were going to follow this plan no matter what. And I disagree with it 100%. But anyway, 12.3, let's do this question so you can check to make sure you know how to do it. This is the same question. Oh, it's the same answer. Well, golly, that's supposed to change. Forget it. It's the same question. They usually give you a different number. Okay. So that's those questions, and we've already done those, so I'm going to delete those. And we're going to look at 12.4. Now, we've already covered 12.4, but we're going to cover it a little bit more. So let me get to the handy dandy. And 155. I'm just pulling this up just to find an example. I could go into the homework and find an example, but I'm just going to do the PowerPoint. Well, I tell you what, no, I want to do the homework. Let's do the homework. Chapter, let's see, assignments 12.4. And ain't too many. Let me find one that's a test question. All right, here we go. Now I'm going to do everything for this. It says find the range and the standard deviation. I'm going to do everything. Everything that we did Wednesday, I'm going to do it on here. And we're going to do it by hand in the Excel spreadsheet so that way everybody can see what I'm doing. But go ahead and write those numbers down. I'll give you about 15, 20 seconds to write those numbers down. Go ahead and put them in order. All right. I'm going to pull up my Excel spreadsheet. Now, I'm only using the Excel spreadsheet because of the format of this class. I can put everything on this page, and I don't have to write all over the notebook paper here and go all over the place. That's why I'm doing it. I'm not using it because I want you to know how to use Excel. I'm only using Excel as a tool, okay, for this class, for the format of this class. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is make it a little bit bigger so you can see it better, and make the grids a little bit darker so you can see. There we go. And I'm going to put my numbers in. And my numbers are, I'm going to skip a couple of lines. All right, 160. I'll put them in order in just a second. 93, 175, 180, 95, 127, 229, and 285. Okay, hopefully everybody sees that. I'll move it up now. And I got rid of this. Okay, that's, let me check it. 160, 93, 175, 180, 95, 127, 229, and 285. Now, I'm not going to worry about the directions because I really don't care about the directions right now. I'm showing you how to do all of this stuff, and then you can pick what you want to do or what you have to do on the test and the homework, okay? And I gave you some of the formulas Wednesday. The mean, let me write this, hold on. There we go. The mean is equal to, and it's also called X bar, okay, mean, average, whatever, is equal to the summation of X over N. Which y'all have done that with test scores your whole junior high and high school years to figure out a test, your average. You added up all your tests and divided by how many tests. Okay. Median. Median is the calculated middle. If N is odd, you just find the center. If N is even, you find the middle two terms add the middle term, I guess you'd say, add the middle terms and divide by 2. Mode. Mode shows up the what? Most. The mode, you just look at it and you write it down. That's all you do. Can you have more than one mode? Yes. It's the one that shows up the most. Mean, median, mode, range. Anybody remember the formula for the range? Highest minus the what? Highest minus the lowest. And then the mid-range is equal to the high plus the low divided by 2. The variance is equal to the summation of x minus x bar quantity squared over n minus 1. And then the square root of the variance is equal to the standard deviation, or the variance raised to the 0.5 power, or 1/2 power. Now, I gave these to you Wednesday. Y'all remember going over these? Yes or no?
Yes.
We did.
Okay, good. So they're in your notes. As long as you aren't, hung over and can't figure out what notebook you're using. Okay? I'm not going to mention any names. Okay? Miss Cersei ain't going to say anything.
I hear you.
All right, so these are your formulas. So now let's do it. First of all, you've got to put your, let me get back to my Excel spreadsheet. You got to put them in order. First of all, what is N equal to? N is how many test scores do you have? Let's say these are, just for giggles, let's say these are test scores, so that way I can say number of test scores. Okay, I know some of them are above 100, but let's say there's some kind of special test score. Okay, IQ test. Let's say IQ test. All right. So N is how many tests that are given. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 is N. And 8 is even, so therefore that comes into play with the median. So first of all, I find out how many is N, and now I put them in order. Now, if you are an Excel person and you can follow along with me, that's fine. But if you are not an Excel person and you don't know what I'm doing, then you need to put them in order on your notebook paper. So go ahead and in your notebook, put this column in order. And I'm just going to hit data and that. So the first thing you do is you put it in order. And I'm going to go ahead and put my stuff over here. Let's see, mean, median, mode, range, mid-range, variance, and standard deviation. Now, the test questions are not going to ask you for all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But if I show you how to find all 7 on each one of my examples, then you should be able to what? Find anything that they ask for. Okay? So with that being said, I got to find the mean. So somebody tell me how I find the mean of these test scores? You start off by saying what?
The mean, you add
How do you find the mean?
And divide them by however many they are.
Good job. Thank you. So equals Well, let me do some. Sum of all of these numbers divided by 8. Okay, I want y'all to go ahead and do that. I want you to take your calculator and add up all those numbers and divide it by 8. Do that. Give y'all 30 seconds. And you should get that number. Did somebody get that number? Just tell me, one person, two people, anybody?
Yes.
Good. All right, now the median. Okay, the median, n, is what? Even. That means I got to find the average of the middle two numbers. And that's those two numbers right there. So I've got to add those two together and divide by 2. You always add them together and divide by 2. That's why I gave you the formula. You add them together and divide by 2. Take the two middle terms, add them together, and divide by 2. Yeah, I know I said that 5 or 6 times, but there's a reason I repeated it 5 or 6 times. This number plus this number divided by 2. And you should get, and I didn't divide by 2, I divided by 1, sorry. 167.5. That is the average. That is your median. That is the center of these numbers, right there where that cross is. 167.5. I really don't care about the mode, but they asked for it. Let's see. I don't see anything that shows up the most. So you say does not exist. Okay, or you say there isn't one, or there ain't none, or you say some word that says it does not exist. Do not put 0, because if you put 0, a smart alecky math teacher would mark it wrong. So even though you meant there's none, don't put 0, put none, N-O-N-E, or does not exist, or there isn't one. Okay? Range, that's equal to the highest minus the what? Minus the lowest. In fact, highest minus the lowest. Mid-range. Mid-range is equal to the highest plus the lowest divided by 2. Sorry. So I just did those problems, and there's the formulas right there. Now the variance. Now what do we need to do to the variance? Now in mathematics, you've been taught this ever since the 7th or 8th grade. You always work your way inside out with the parentheses, right? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. You do what's in the parentheses, then you do the exponent. So we'll start on the inside of the parentheses. I've got to subtract the mean, which is X bar, right there, from each one of my X's. Each X is a test score. Okay, so I've got to subtract that mean from each one of these grades. And I'm going to go ahead and put X right here. And this is going to be, let me also, no. And this is going to be X minus X bar. So I'm going to take 93 and I'm going to subtract the mean. Hit enter. And I need you right now with your notebook in your calculator, I want you to do that with each one of those to make sure you get the same numbers I get. So do that right now. Remember, this is the second problem we've done like this. Okay, so you have 2 examples. You need to write down what you're doing. And that's what X minus X bar is. You're taking this number and you're subtracting that number from each one. And go ahead and fill out your column. And I'll give y'all a minute to do that. And I'm going to put a insert. There we go. All right, somebody tell me, look at the formula, this formula right here. In fact, I'm going to take my handy dandy pink highlighter because this is a very important formula because you have to read it. In case you forget what to do, you need to read it. And that's why we're reading through it, so you'll know how to read it when you are at home by yourself. Okay, I just subtracted. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Well, okay. I just subtracted my mean from each one of my test scores. So what am I going to do now? Please, I did parentheses. Next, exponent. So I'm going to take that number and I'm going to what? Raise it to the what? Second power. So that's what we're going to do now. Parentheses, X minus X bar raised to the second power. So I'm going to take that 75, negative 75, and I'm going to raise it to the second power. It makes every one of your numbers positive. So go ahead and do this column. I'll give you another minute. Excuse me. Okay, so my variance, I don't know what I go back to my formula. My formula says after I square it what does that funky looking E mean? What does that big sigma mean?
Sum.
Means you got to add up all those
Sum.
numbers. Yeah, sum. So I'm going to add up all those numbers. Of course, you need to do that in your notebook. And that number right there is your numerator. I'm going to color it magenta. That way you'll know it goes to the numerator. Well, some kind of paint color. So in order to get this pink number right here, which is your formula, you've got to subtract the mean from each one of these numbers. Then you get these numbers. Then you have to square these numbers. And that gives you these numbers. And then you have to add up all those numbers. And that's that number right there. And that is your numerator for your variance. So if you take your handy dandy formula and you put 30,302 right there, what is n minus 1? Somebody tell me what n minus 1 would be. Okay, all of you should be saying 7. Where did I get 7 from?
The number of scores minus 1.
Exactly. Thank you, Miss Cersei. I know you get tired of answering questions, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's Mr. Brickman's turn.
But you have. Well,
You're right.
I think the rest of the class is
I've been
being
real slow
today, so I don't know. What'd you say, Mr. Brickman?
I said she's right. I've just been a little slow today. A little tired.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to take I'm going to do that calculation, do it in your notes. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do it in an Excel spreadsheet and check your number with what I got. Equals this number divided by 7. And now I'm going to take the square root of that or raise that to the 0.5 power. I'm going to take the square root of that number or I'm going to raise it to the 0.5 or 1/2 power. And that's going to be that number raised, I'm sorry, wrong number. This number raised to the 0.5 power. I got 65.8, and that is your average score of all these scores. That's your average of all those test scores. I mean your standard deviation, not your average, your standard deviation. Now what I've just shown y'all is 12.4. This right here, that right there is 12.4. Along with the 5-number summary, and we'll go over that with another question because I've about run out of time today. I only got like 5-10 minutes. Mike can do another one, I don't know. Okay, so that's how you find the mean, the median. There is no middle in this one, but it's the one that shows the range, the mid-range, variance, and standard deviation. Now, I'm not going to go in and explain too much what standard deviation is, but I'll tell you that a good word is the spread, meaning the spread of your distribution. Okay, I'll just show you right quick what the standard deviation does. This comes from the 120 class. We use these a lot, so I just print these out. Okay. When you draw a normal curve, and I want you to draw this curve and put these lines, you know, it ain't got to be perfect, but when you do a normal distribution in a statistical sense, you're going to have the mean in the middle. Now, let's say we do a problem and the mean is equal to 40 and the standard deviation is equal to 10. I'm going to put X bar right there and I'm going to put S right there because sometimes it's called X bar and sometimes it's called S. So let's say we're doing some math problem and we get the mean is equal to 40 and the standard deviation is equal to 10. Then the mean goes in the middle, right there. And the standard deviation is the spread of your distribution. So mu is 40 plus 10 is 50. 40 plus 20 is 60. 40 plus 30 is 70. 40 minus 10 is 30. 40 minus 20 is 20. And 40 minus 30 is 10. Now I'm going to show you this one thing right quick, and this is called the empirical rule. The empirical rule basically is a way that you can estimate the percentages of your data without having to do too much math. And that's what these percentages are. So write those percentages down, and that is the empirical rule, and I'm going to show you what the empirical rule says. Give you a minute to draw it and label it and all that stuff. While I try to find my green highlighter. There it is.
On the page before that, do you know how to round off the variance and standard deviation? Yeah. Okay.
On this
Yes.
page,
Back on that Excel sheet that
you
have.
round off according to the directions. Huh?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, you talking about the Excel spreadsheet? Okay.
Yeah.
And this came from just me making up something. Okay. I rounded, I did these two numbers right here because of easy math. Okay. But if you do round, you would round to whatever the question tells you to round to. Okay. That's why I extended all the way out as far as I can go. So your directions may say round the standard deviation to the nearest whole number. That'd be 66. And then they may say do the median to the nearest whole number. That'd be 168. Always round at the very end when you're fixing to type in your answer. You never round in the middle of a question or a calculation. Is that what you were asking, Miss Cersei?
Yeah, but when you do the square root, you have to put in that whole long number to get the correct answer, or you round that off before?
Yes. Yes. In other words, if you were doing this in a calculator, you would say 4328.857.857.143. And I'm going to raise that to the 0.5 power. And it gives you, yeah, you would not say, well, I'm just going to take the square root of 4328. No, you do not do that. You got to put the whole number in.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. All right, now back to this question. The empirical rule, and this is important, says that within 2 standard deviations, that's what that 2 alpha means, everything is, anybody know what it means? Starts with an N. Everything is normal. And that represents 95%. If you was to add up these 4 numbers, you would get 95%. And what's outside 95%? Well, we'll color that orange. This is called unusual. We'll put a big U there for unusual. And then the red, notice I'm using red. That means it's important. What's out here? Anybody know from their probability of statistics course in high school? What's out here? Outliers. What do you mean outliers? Well, my outlier. Peyton Manning is an outlier. Tiger Woods is an outlier. What does all 3 of those people have in common? Okay, I can add, what's his name? Brady. What's his name? Tom Brady. What do those 4 people have in common?
They're really good.
They're really good. And what makes them really good?
They
Why
stand out
are
like
they so
above average.
good? They stand out. In other words, they're like 1% of 1%. In other words, they're out there. They're an outlier. That's what an outlier is. Let me give you another example of an outlier. A 6-foot 3rd grader. That's an outlier. A student that can play Beethoven's 5th Symphony on piano by the age of 6 years old. That's an outlier. Okay, so that's what outlier is. Unusual, unusual would be somebody that goes to Podunk High School and gets a scholarship to Cambridge in electrical engineering and comes out and makes a lot of money being an electrical engineer, blah 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 blah. Because not a lot of people can get a full scholarship to Cambridge or a full scholarship to MIT. Okay, so that's unusual. You don't come about that every once in a while. And then most of us, unfortunately, where do we end up? We end up in the middle because we're average. Okay, so that's what the empirical rule. This right here is the empirical rule. Should you put this on an index card and keep it? Yes. This is a test question. Whether it's on my test or standardized test, this is a test question. So a question would be like this. Is a score, and we'll say these are scores on an algebra test or whatever, is a score of 65 unusual? What would the answer be?
Say that again.
I just wrote it. It's right here.
Oh.
Is a score of 65 unusual? That's a yes or no question.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because 65 falls right there. What would the score of 40 be? 40 would be normal. What would a score of -8 be? Well, -8 would be not even in the scope, but 8 would be an outlier. 75 would be an outlier. That's how you read the empirical rule. But why did I show you this? Well, I showed you this, and I know it's time to go. I showed you this so you can understand why we find this. I'll highlight that as there. The two most important numbers in statistics is the mean and the standard deviation. Write that down because that's where we're going to end today. The most important numbers in statistics is the mean and the standard deviation, because with the mean and the standard deviation, you can do the empirical rule. Okay, we're going to stop there, and I'm going to unpresent. I've already taken the roll, and I'm going to hit stop recording.